Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moments. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Soul Land 2 Part 241 based on novel. So let's start. The second strongest person in Shrek Academy. Even though he was only the second strongest, it was still equally shocking. After all, Shrek Academy was not just any institution. Even the Sun Moon Empire had to admit that it was not one of the strongest academies, but the strongest academy in the world. Even though the Holy Ghost Church had been building up reserves of power for thousands of years, they still did not dare to use the evil soul masters they had nurtured to launch an attack on Shrek Academy. They did not dare to challenge Shrek Academy even though they had two ultimate Dolor. And that was because of the huge amount of reserves it had built up over tens of thousands of years. Back when the Soul Beasts launched the Beast Wave against Shrek City, they were ultimately still unable to destroy Shrek City even though they had 5 of the 10 great savage beasts among them. This showed exactly how powerful Shrek Academy was. One could only imagine how powerful their second strongest cultivator was. On top of that, this person was rumored to be the founder of the Spirit Pagoda. This piece of information further shocked everyone from the Doling Empire. Yuhao was not particularly pleased with his third senior brother's introduction of him. However, he knew he should not make him look bad in front of the Doling Empire. Hence, he stepped forward and stood beside Shu Sancha as he nodded towards the people whom Shu Sancha was addressing. When the higher-ups from the Doling Empire saw how Yuhao was even younger than Shu Sancha, they seemed to be mildly amused. Shu Sancha immediately clarified, "I will urge everyone not to doubt his abilities just because of his tender age. He is, in fact, a talent which is only produced once in 1,000 years from our academy. He currently already possesses the ability of a transcendent Dolor, and also has twin martial souls. Just now, he personally went after the 2 Sun Moon Empire Soul Engineer Legions which attacked us, and has already confirmed their identities. They were the 2 beast-ranked Soul Engineer Legions, the Imperial Dragon Soul Engineer Legion and the Evil Eye Tyrant Soul Engineer Legion. Yuhao and his beloved pursued the legions, and destroyed more than half of their Soul Engineers. On top of that, they were able to kill the Legion commander of the Imperial Dragon Soul Engineer Legion. If they were not concerned about the situation at Doling City, they would probably have killed every single enemy who had attacked our city." Shu Sanchi's words were indeed a little exaggerated. He had merely said what he understood and guessed. Little did he know that his guesses were actually spot on. The old Prime Minister's jaw dropped as he looked at Yuhao. "Are you really the Pagoda Master of the Spirit Pagoda?" Yuhao nodded gently and said, "Yes, I am. I know it's a little hard to believe it because of my age. In that case, let me try to provide some evidence to support these claims." As he spoke, Yuhao strode forward. At the next instant, an immensely powerful aura exploded from his body as his soul ring started to gradually rise from his feet. When everyone saw how his first soul ring was white, they could not help but frown. Isn't a white soul ring a 10-year soul ring? However, they soon noticed how the white soul ring was radiating a brilliant golden color. Following which, black rings started to rise from his feet. When it reached the 6th soul ring, they saw a rose gold soul ring. Afterward, the remaining soul rings were all red. This meant that the colors of Yuhao's 9 soul rings were gold, black, 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 rose gold, red, red, and red. What kind of soul ring collection is this? However, this was not going to be the last thing which would startle them. Yuhao squinted as he released his invincible spiritual power and enveloped the entire ruins of the palace. Everyone could sense a gentle stream of spiritual power flowing into his or her spiritual sea. Following which, they could see more than half of Doling City from their spiritual seas. They were not only seeing the silhouette, but every single detail of the city. It was important to note that there were close to 1,000 people present before them. How much spiritual power did it require to share these images with so many people? To be honest, Yuhao's spirit eyes only had 8 soul rings. His ultimate ice martial soul was the one with 9 soul rings. However, Yuhao had used his imitation to make some slight adjustments to his abilities to leave a deeper impression on the crowd. After all, his spiritual power was already on par with that of an ultimate Dolor. It did not matter whether he was short a single soul skill. Yuhao was very clear about what he had to do right now. He needed to help his third senior brother stabilize the current situation. If possible, he wanted to help his third senior brother become emperor. The Doling Empire needed stability more than anything right now. It was only possible to quell their fears by demonstrating strong power. This would then convince them to acknowledge his third senior brother's status and identity. This also happened to be the first time Yuhao had tried to perform spiritual detection sharing on a few thousand people. It was not as simple as what he did when he was leading the Soul Engineer Legion. He did not have to project the details of close to half a city to more than 1,000 people back then. The two soul cores within Yuhao were rotating furiously as they tried to replenish the spiritual power he was expending. Even though his current spiritual detection sharing was consuming a lot of spiritual power, he was definitely able to maintain it for an extended period of time. After a couple of minutes, Yuhao ended his spiritual detection sharing and returned to Shu Sanqi's side. He said, "I believe everyone present was able to see the current situation of Doling City. To be honest, the entire incident was very tragic. We had, in fact, already reached the Doling Empire before the attack after receiving news that the Sun Moon Empire would definitely attack the Doling Empire. However, we did not know where the enemy was, or how they would try to attack you. Hence, we focused our efforts on the borders, and wasted too much time there. Who would have known that the Sun Moon Empire would try to sneak in and head straight to Doling City without anyone knowing? By the time we discovered what they were trying to do, it was already too late. We could not stop the tragedy from unfolding in time. Regardless of whether it is my third senior brother or my other peers from the Shrek Academy, we only have one objective, and that is to help the Doling Empire. We are not here to wrest away any political power. I hope all of you can believe that we come in peace." Yuhao's words made the Doling Empire's military staff blush in embarrassment. His words meant that the entire Doling Empire's security troops were not even aware that the Sun Moon Empire's two Soul Engineer legions had managed to sneak past the security at the borders and move towards the capital. If they wanted to push the blame on someone, the military staff and generals present should all have been put to death. At this instant, a heavy silence fell upon the crowd. The strength Yuhao had demonstrated had already convinced everyone of his power. His feat of using his own spiritual power to share the entire situation of the Doling city with all of them was truly unheard of. Shu Sanqi's identity was more or less confirmed. At most, they would send some people over to Shrek Academy to verify it one last time. So what was going to happen next? The Prime Minister walked towards Shu Sanqi before kneeling on the ground with one knee. "Your Highness, the Doling Empire is currently in an extremely precarious predicament. Now that we have verified your identity, can I get Your Highness to lead us and rebuild the palace? In addition, I hope that Your Highness can temporarily take over His Majesty's position to provide some much-needed reassurance to our people." Shu Sanqi nodded gently. He no longer had any reservations at this point. Usually, he would never have chosen to stay here to become a prince or take on any kind of high-level administrative position. However, now that the Doling Empire was on the verge of crumbling, he had no choice, especially when his mother was the princess of this empire. He could not allow the Doling Empire to fall before his eyes. There would be a huge political problem within the Doling Empire if the royal family had no descendants to take the throne. The entire empire would become fragmented as everyone would try to seize political power and set up their own government. And when that happened, the empire would collapse by itself. How would the Star Luo Empire then protect itself against the Sun Moon Empire without support from the Doling Empire? Hence, it was undeniable that the Sun Moon Empire's mission had been very successful. If not for Shu Sanqi's unexpected appearance, it would still have been very successful even if the two Beast Lord-leveled Soul Engineer legions were all killed. Yuhao sighed in despair. Right now, the only thing he could do was support Shu Sanqi. The surrounding ministers and staff started to kneel down before Shu Sanqi after the Prime Minister and Commander Li had done so. All of them started to pay their respects. From the looks of the current situation, Shu Sanqi was definitely the aptest successor to the throne. It was most important for the Doling Empire to stabilize the hearts of its people and its military. Xu Sancha got both the Prime Minister and Commander Li to stay behind as the three of them held an emergency meeting to make three important decisions. The first decision was to make sure that news of the attack on the palace was kept secret. The second decision was that Xu Sancha would continue to chair the court meetings as the Prince Regent, since he was the only possible successor from the royal family. The third decision was to prioritize providing reassurance to the people within Doling City. After all, they could not afford to lose the confidence of their people. They would announce to the citizens that the palace did not sustain heavy losses, and that the majority of the royal family was only hurt. Only a few of them were dead because of the explosion. The Prince Regent would take over the duty of ruling the empire only because His Majesty was currently injured. They would definitely not allow the elite troops at Shrek City to hear of this news. The worst thing that could happen to the Doling Empire was chaos. It would be a huge tragedy if their army at the front line were to mutiny. It would also be terrible if the people in their empire started to lose confidence in the royal family and decided to overthrow them. Besides, it was not the right time to get the elite troops to return. It was vital for them to stabilize the capital before discussing what their next move should be. It was hence expected that Xu Sancha would temporarily stay in Doling City. After discussing with Xu Sancha, Yuhao decided to allow Jiang Nan, Ji Juechen, Yi Gai, and Nan Qiuqiu to stay behind and assist him. After all, it would be too much for him to handle alone. In the meantime, Yuhao and Tang Wutong would speedily return to Shrek City and relay what had happened to the academy. They needed to change their strategy and act when the opportunity arose. After all, Yuhao's plan for both the Imperial Dragon Soul Engineer Legion and the Evil Tyrant Soul Engineer Legion was far from over. In order to control how the following events would turn out, he needed to understand the current situation of the two legions. Third senior brother, good luck with your work here. Yuhao hugged Xu Sancha and gave him a pat on the back. Xu Sancha sighed before saying, I never expected something like this to happen. I'll pen a letter right away and get my family members and my mother to come here. I really hope my mother won't do something foolish after seeing. As he spoke, he became even more depressed. After all, the royal family of the Doling Empire was his family. Now that they had been wiped out, how could he not be depressed? Yuhao, I'll settle things over here. Even though I don't have much experience in governing an empire, I'll do my best to make sure everything stays stable. I'll need your help to take care of matters at the academy, as well as the Doling Empire troops at the front line. The Doling Empire cannot afford to take another hit like this. Yuhao nodded and said, Third senior brother, try your best to stabilize things here as soon as possible. It would also be good if you could start on the reconstruction of the palace immediately. I will try to delay your army's return while you settle these things. The war has only just begun, and I have no idea what the future will hold for all of us. However, regardless of how things might turn out, we will all do our best to defend our land against the Sun Moon Empire. After bidding goodbye to Xu Sancha and the other people from Doling Empire, Yuhao and Tang Wutong flew back to Shrek City overnight. Reality proved Yuhao's prediction correct. Of course, it was not entirely his own prediction when Zhu Zi had already informed him personally. Even though she had not lied to him about her plan, Yuhao took a little too long to fully grasp her plan. While the two of them were flying across the night sky, Yuhao revealed a solemn expression, while Tang Wutong could not help but frown. Yes, the war had only just begun. The Sun Moon Empire's army was still at Shrek City. Now, the entire continent was becoming increasingly chaotic. The Sun Moon Empire had undeniably gotten the upper hand. If things were to continue this way, no one could be sure when they would suddenly launch an all-out attack on them. This time around, even though they had managed to take out what was equivalent to a beast-ranked Soul Engineer Legion, the entire royal family of the Doling Empire had been wiped out. This meant that internal problems within the Doling Empire would start to surface, and the Doling Empire's fighting power would definitely decrease. The next target for the Sun Moon Empire would definitely not be Doling Empire. They would go for the Star Luo Empire. Once the Star Luo Empire was out of the picture, taking down Doling Empire would be a piece of cake. It seemed like Yuhao would have no choice but to fight alongside that man. When he thought about this, Yuhao could not help but reveal an awkward expression. After going through so much, the hatred in his heart was a lot less intense than before. This was especially true after seeing what had happened to Ju Zi. She had given up on too many things because of the hatred in her heart. Even though she was now the war god empress, she was not leading a blissful life. Perhaps, the right time for Yuhao to settle his relationship with that man was coming soon. As this thought surfaced in his mind, Yuhao could not help but feel a little apprehensive about meeting him again. He was not very willing to face that man, the person whom he had once hated unconditionally but had now started to gain some respect from Yuhao. By the time Yuhao and Tang Wutong returned to Shrek City, it was almost dawn. Shrek City was very quiet, but the belligerence in the air was palpable. After Shrek City was rebuilt, it was a lot larger than before. It was almost as big as the entire Radiant City. Right now, Shrek City was housing hundreds of thousands of troops, which were elite troops from the Star Luo and Doling empires. They seemed to be ready to decide victory once and for all with the Sun Moon Empire's army. Of course, the remaining troops of the Heavenly Soul Empire were also within Shrek City. The current Heavenly Soul Empire army had about 70,000 people. Even though they had lost a lot of their elite troops, those who were able to survive were truly the cream of the crop from the Heavenly Soul Empire. In fact, some of the survivors were members of the Body Sect. However, the fact was that both the Heavenly Soul Empire and the Body Sect had already been destroyed by the Sun Moon Empire. They were now a long way from what they were in the past. Whenever Yuhao thought about Princess Wei En's pale face and soulless eyes, he could not help but sigh. Wars were truly cruel things. After flying straight into the academy and across Sea God's Lake, they landed on Sea God's Island. There was no time for them to rest. After all, every new piece of information could decide the outcome of the war. Even though Yuhao and Tang Wutong were already titled Dolor, they would still feel tired like normal people. However, now was definitely not the time for them to catch up on any form of rest. Both of them sped into the Sea God's pavilion. As usual, Yuhao prayed before the golden tree before stepping into the pavilion. They did not try to conceal their auras, and their arrival awakened the elders from their meditation. Yuhao and Tang Wutong stood silently as they waited in the hall. Tang Wutong squeezed Yuhao's hand and whispered, "Yuhao, be careful with your words later. Don't mess it up." Yuhao naturally understood what she meant as he nodded. It did not take too long before the elders of the Sea God's pavilion started to come down the staircase. After seeing how disheveled they looked, the elders revealed a look of surprise. They had thought that both Yuhao and Tang Wutong were still in Tang Sect. Elder Xian had given an alternative explanation for their absence from the conference for the past few days. He had told them that Yuhao had chosen to stay in the Tang Sect to consolidate his currently unstable powers after making his breakthrough. When Elder Xian saw the frustration written on Yuhao's face, he was already able to make an educated guess as to what had probably happened. He gradually headed over to his seat as he waved towards Yuhao and Tang Wutong. "Yuhao, Wutong, take a seat." However, Yuhao shook his head and said, "I am sorry, Elder Xian. I don't think I can get myself to sit down. I would prefer to stand." Elder Xian took a deep breath as a light flashed in his eyes. He saw the determined look in Yuhao's eyes. He nodded and said, "Okay then. I believe both of you must have something to say. If not, you would not have come here to wake us up with your spiritual auras before dawn." Yuhao nodded before bowing before the elders with Tang Wutong. After straightening his back, he said, "I have just returned from the Doling Empire with Wutong." "The Doling Empire?" After hearing what he had said, the elders present could not help but gasp in surprise. Elder Song couldn't help but ask, "What were you doing in Doling Empire?" Yuhao closed his eyes as a look of pain formed on his face. "I went to Doling Empire to witness the death of their entire royal family." "What?" After hearing his words, everyone's eyes widened in disbelief. Even Elder Xian lost his composure as he stood up and glared at Yuhao. "Yuhao, you must take responsibility for your words." Yuhao complained, "Responsibility? Sure, I can take responsibility for everything. However, no matter how responsible I am, can I resurrect the thousands of lives of the royal family who have perished? Just a while ago, Doling City was attacked by 2 beast-ranked Soul Engineer legions dispatched by the Sun Moon Empire. The capital of the Doling Empire was bombed by a Class 9 stationary soul cannon shell. The entire palace was reduced to rubble, and no one from the royal family was found alive after the explosion. This was because the entire royal family was attending a gathering in the palace. Hence, no one was spared from the explosion. By the time I arrived, the entire city was already enshrouded in smoke. Following which, he elaborated on how he had brought his peers from Tang Sect to the Doling Empire, and how he had guessed the method of operation the Sun Moon Empire had planned to take. Afterward, he moved on to share what had happened at the palace, as well as how he handled the 2 Soul Engineer legions. Yuhao spoke with an unnaturally low voice. The pain and desperation in his voice were obvious. No matter how many Sun Moon Empire Soul Engineers I kill, I can never reverse what has happened to the royal family. The Sun Moon Empire has employed methods which are extremely vicious, and it has already calculated how Doling Empire will crumble because of this attack. In the meantime, the elite troops from the Doling Empire are waiting for an improbable battle within our city walls. A heavy silence fell upon the hall in the Sea God's Pavilion. Following which, the elders' breathing became more intense. In their eyes, it was unimaginable that the palace of the Doking Empire would be attacked. Elder Zhuang couldn't help but ask angrily, what was the army stationed in the Doling Empire doing? How could they not know when 2 entire Soul Engineer legions infiltrated their land? Yuhao shook his head and said, even if it was the Star Luo Empire, the outcome would not have been much different. The Sun Moon Empire definitely has a technological advantage which grants them the ability to sneak a few hundred Soul Engineers in without being detected. After all the empires have an incredibly long border. The main problem is that the elite troops from the Doling Empire were not present. They had all been dispatched to reinforce Shrek City. The Sun Moon Empire struck them when the capital was at its most vulnerable state. Otherwise, would they have fallen so easily? One of the elders apparently took Yuhao's words very personally as he said coldly, in that case, are you blaming us for this unfortunate event? Are you blaming us for not listening to your suggestion? Do you expect us to give up on defending Shrek City? Do you think they would stop sending reinforcements if we told them to do so? Yuhao went silent. Of course, he knew he could not blame the elders for this tragedy. Everyone present here had the Academy's interest at heart. He shook his head and apologized, I am sorry for losing control of my emotions earlier. I just can't forget the image of the palace turning into ruins before my eyes. I am really sorry. I don't think I am suitable to remain as a member of the Sea God's Pavilion anymore. I hereby request that the elders remove my appointment. As he spoke, Yuhao pulled Tang Wutong backward as they bowed politely before the elders before turning around to leave. Stop! Elder Song exclaimed furiously as he called out to Yuhao. At this moment, not every elder from the Sea God's Pavilion was present. Yang Shaoxia, Cai Maya, Xian Lina, Qian Duo, and Zhong Leshuan were absent from the current conversation. As the younger members of the Sea God's Pavilion, they had all set off for the front line, ready to take on the Sun Moon Empire's forces. Hence, the elders who stayed behind at the Sea God's Pavilion were the older ones. Yuhao stopped walking, but his head remained lowered. Elder Song scolded, this is the Sea God's Pavilion, not your Tang Sect. Do you think you can come and go as you please? Do you think you can just quit as you wish? Yuhao's head remained lowered as he kept quiet. Elder Song stared coldly at him before continuing, I know what you're thinking. You must be thinking that our decision was wrong. You must be blaming the attack on Doling Empire and the deaths of the royal family on our request for help. Am I right? Yuhao shook his head and said, Elder Song, that's not true. It's just that sometimes, I feel that the Academy is weighed down by too many responsibilities. Our heritage, which is over 10,000 years old, is both the foundation of our strength and an immense burden on our shoulders. This burden stops us from analyzing our situation rationally. In fact, it makes us overly conservative about everything we do. I just want to say that I am not blaming the Academy for everything that has happened. I am just feeling a little down. However, this war is far from over. Right after this, I intend to head to the battlefield and continue fighting. If we were to fight the Sun Moon Empire head-on, there's absolutely no chance of us winning. Hence, I can only rely on unorthodox methods. In other words, I might need to rely on what is seemingly unscrupulous to weaken their forces. This is the only way that we might stand a chance against them. I cannot allow the Academy to be shamed because of what I plan to do. Hence. What? After hearing his explanation, the elders present seemed to have lost their rage as a look of surprise formed on their faces. They had all thought that Yuhao wanted to leave the Sea God's pavilion because he had lost his temper. Little did they expect him to want to leave because of a mature consideration. Elder Xian said, "Yuhao, do you really think that we can't tolerate any scheming ploys or some unscrupulous methods? Even though the Academy's reputation is extremely important, it should not be allowed to become a burden to our strategies. You are right to say that our Academy's heritage is sometimes a burden. However, it is a burden that we need to take on and be responsible for. I admit that we need to accept partial responsibility for the death of the Doling Empire's royal family. However, Shrek City cannot afford to fall at all costs. This is something that cannot be debated." Yuhao said, "I am sorry, Elder Xian. In order to go up against the Sun Moon Empire, I might even utilize abilities which are similar to those of evil soul masters. This is something the Academy has never allowed. I cannot allow the Academy to lose its reputation because of my actions. I can imagine how the Sun Moon Empire would use this reason to attack the Academy in the future. I can only avoid shaming the Academy by leaving all of you." Elder Xian spoke plainly, "Foolish lad, you're thinking too much. What's wrong with that?" Huh? Yuhao's jaw dropped. How could it be fine for people to spread news that Shrek Academy had produced evil soul masters? Even though evil soul masters are our enemies, there is no power in the world that is objectively right or wrong. There are only evil people who harbor ill intentions against other humans. Powerful abilities when utilized in times of war are commonly considered evil abilities. But when they are used in other areas in beneficial ways, they are usually considered good abilities. This is the same for the abilities of evil soul masters. Do you really think we don't know how you once utilized that power to help the Academy when the beast wave attacked us previously? If you remember correctly, none of us reprimanded you for that. On top of that, the Academy's 10,000 years of heritage has indeed given us a huge responsibility. However, at the same time, it has given us a reputation which will not be easily shaken by the Sun Moon Empire's rumors. Do you know why the Sun Moon Empire's army doesn't dare to make a move on us? Other than you as a personal reason, they fear that they might lose the support of their soldiers and soul engineers if they were to attack us. After all, our academy is the #1 academy in the entire world. It is where every soul master in the world dreams of joining. No soul master would treat us lightly, and the soul masters and soul engineers from the Sun Moon Empire are no exception. As for what happened to the Doling Empire, we are all very sorry to hear about their tragic fate. However, we can't change what has already happened. All we can do is help the Doling Empire stabilize their empire. At the same time, we can help protect them from the Sun Moon Empire's army. Yuhao, just go ahead and do whatever you had in mind. The only thing which we, the old fellows, can do is stay within Shrek City and ensure that the bulk of their army stays here. Elder Song slowly walked towards Yuhao. She was a lot shorter than him, and hence could only tilt her head upwards in order to look him in the eyes. Young one, sometimes, when it comes to certain things, we just have to change the way we look at them. Even if the Star Luo Empire and Doling Empire were to fall, as long as their elites remain alive within Shrek City, there will still be hope. Our academy has already released all our soul tool research findings, as well as the information regarding martial souls in our library, to all the elite soul masters from the 3 empires currently staying within Shrek City. We might not be a country, and might not be the best when it comes to war, but our strength lies in passing on knowledge and tradition. After hearing Elder Song's words, Yuhao was startled. He had never expected the Academy to be using this method to counter the Sun Moon Empire's schemes. The Heavenly Soul Empire, Doling Empire and the Star Luo Empire's elite troops largely consisted of soul masters. There were more than 10,000 Soul Masters currently in Shrek City. That was almost a third of the total number of Soul Masters within the entire continent. It was probably close to half of the total number of Soul Masters within the 3 original empires of the Doluo continent. Shrek Academy was actually choosing to release all the research findings they had on soul tools, as well as the cultivation methods they had developed over their 10,000 years of history, to all these Soul Masters. This meant that all of these Soul Masters were, to a certain extent, being nurtured by Shrek Academy. Even if the war turned out to be a disaster for all 3 empires, as long as these Soul Masters were to inherit the spirit and learnings of Shrek Academy, they would always have a chance at restoring the 3 original empires of the Doluo continent. It seemed like the Academy had its own unique way of handling its responsibilities. It was, in fact, protecting the 3 original empires in its own way. This selfless spirit transformed the doubt in Yuhao's heart into guilt. The look in Elder Song's eyes turned softer as she gently patted Yuhao's shoulder. "Young man, it is good that you have a kind and brave heart. But you must remember that the Academy will never become your burden or your sole responsibility at any point in time. As long as we old fellows are still around, we won't allow you to take on every responsibility out there. It is only after all of us have passed away when your generation will take the baton from us. And before that happens, the Academy will only be a supportive force behind you. We already chose to believe in you unconditionally the moment you became a member of the Sea Gods Pavilion. So go ahead and do what you want to do." Elder Song, Yuhao's voice started to tremble. In fact, tears were starting to well up in Tang Wutong's eyes. Elder Xian stood up and walked to Elder Song's side as he revealed a solemn expression. "Elder Song is right. As long as we are alive, we will bear this heavy responsibility. But you are also not wrong to say that we have been overly conservative and protective of what the Academy has achieved. Indeed, we are lacking the mentality and courage to do what is ultimately right. You have already matured and grown a lot. Now, you possess the ability to protect yourself. So run along and do what you think needs to be done. I believe that the 2 of you will be able to turn the tables. And while you're working on that, Shrek City will never fall into the hands of our enemies when all of us present here are still alive." Yuhao suddenly took a few steps backward before he kneeled down with a loud thud. He lowered his torso to pay his respects to every single elder present. After doing so thrice, he stood up again and left the hall with Tang Wutong. As Elder Xian watched him leave, he revealed a heartening smile on his face. "This lad has really matured. I really admire Elder Mu for having such a great disciple. As long as he is around, the spirit of Shrek Academy will never be extinguished. I'm really curious as to what he can achieve in the future." Elder Song gazed into the distance as she said, "This lad is right. We've been bundling too many responsibilities onto ourselves. I really hope that the continent can tide through this difficult period together." Elder Xian asked, "What do you think this lad's next move will be?" Elder Zhuang stood up and said, "I don't think I can guess what he's up to next. But judging from the look on his face, it should probably be something that will be extremely shocking to the rest of the world. If not, he would never have chosen to leave the Sea Gods Pavilion at this juncture with the character he has." Elder Xian started to frown. It seemed as though he might have an inkling of what Yuhao was about to do. After leaving the Sea Gods Pavilion, Yuhao held onto Tang Wutong's hand as they left Shrek Academy for the Tang Sect. Bei had not taken his rest. In fact, no one from Tang Sect had rested at all. Since the Sun Moon Empire's army had camped outside Shrek City, the entire Tang Sect had been working like a machine. The reason was that only the Tang Sect Soul Tool Hall was capable of producing the powerful soul tools that could strengthen the defensive capabilities of Shrek Academy. This time around, the Star Luo Empire and Doling Empire did not only send their elite soul masters and troops, but they had also brought large amounts of rare metals with them. Now that Shrek Academy had shared its research findings with everyone, the different empires no longer cared about personal interests as they pooled their resources to protect each other's empires. The Heavenly Soul Empire's fall was an important reminder for them to unite and fight off their common enemy. With sufficient materials, the soul engineers within Shrek Academy could begin their work. Averaging only 4 hours of rest every day, the soul engineers invested the rest of their time working on soul tools. Even though Bei Bei did not know how to build soul tools, as the eldest senior brother of the Tang Sect, he helped to delegate the work along with Tang Ya. Some of the soul masters from the Star Luo Empire and Doling Empire who had the gifts to become soul engineers even volunteered to help out under their instruction. This was not only a learning process for them, as they tried their best to help alleviate the manpower shortage problem in the Tang Sect. Hence, the Tang Sect had been running with a heavy toll on its manpower. Little junior brother, tired Bei Bei's heart sank after seeing the unpleasant expression on Hui Yuhao and Tang Wutong's faces. The first thought that hit him was that something wrong must have happened. Where are Sancha and the rest? Did they get? Bei Bei gasped. This video will end here.